Hi, I'm Nikki, the Obsessive Bookseller. Welcome to my channel. We're doing a big book haul today. And really, I hadn't planned on filming a book haul for several weeks because I don't have a slot to air it for like a month or two. But my cart is getting like a little ridiculous. Sneak peek there. So I need to clear out some of these titles, like I have room. Now, I know you may not believe me when I say this, but I've actually been a little more conservative on book buying. I'm really only focusing on some of the more amazing titles that I'm really excited to read. My challenge overhauled project was really eye-opening. It was a challenge I did with my patrons where I wrote down all the books that I bought last year and then did a random draw and had to read the ones that came up. It was very telling that there were quite a few in there that I wasn't excited to read. Like, why did I buy them? I mean, some of them I could at least give a pass to, like, yeah, I probably am not in the mood right now, but eventually I'm going to want to read that. But no, most of them were just because they were pretty. But speaking of pretty books, I got some cool stuff. So we got Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the broken binding edition with the sprayed edges. And it is also signed, which I think is really cool. The thing is, I prefer the US version with like the yellow flora. I like that better than the red. But I didn't want to get that one at the expense of missing out on the one with sprayed edges and signed. But I love this author. I'm making a concerted effort to go through and read everything in his arsenal, and I think this will be one that I hopefully get to by the end of the year. Also from Broken Binding, their science fiction subscription list. This is The Martian by Andy Weir, and I'm one of the few who have not read this one yet. I saw the end of the movie several years ago. Like, I caught the end bits. It was airing on TV and I thought, well, shoot, now I don't need to read the book. I know what happens. Usually when I know anything about what's going on in a book, I don't really want to read it. However, I think the beauty in this one is more about the journey on how he got from point A to point B and less important on where he ended up as like to how he got there. So yeah, well, especially since I also have this nice special new edition, I should probably read it to justify the purchase, right? Even though I haven't read The Book That Wouldn't Burn yet, I picked up a copy of A Book That Broke the World. I feel like this is going to be right up my alley. Mark Lawrence and I have had a bit of a hit or miss relationship. I really liked the first Red Sister book, but Gray's Sister kind of took on too many tangents and I ended up kind of losing interest in it. But I mean, the concept for this one sounds good. I like the author's basic writing. And if I liked the first book, I wanted to be able to dive into the second one right away. It's actually like half as big as the first book. So very excited for that one. Y'all know how much I love Kim Harrison. She has a new series out, 3 Kinds of Lucky. And I snagged a signed edition from Barnes & Noble. And I love the cover on this one, like the color scheme, any kind of ombre. Purple's not generally my favorite, but I like how bright and like neon-y it is. I don't know anything about this. The last time the author tried to start a new series with the drafter, it didn't go well. And I have some very specific notes on why I think it didn't go as well as it could have. Starting with not making the character not particularly likable. But this one, the concept, the fun, like the author is so established. I cannot wait to see what she's going to do next. And very excited to dive into this one. It actually got picked for a Patreon book club. Like, I nominated it on a whim and didn't think it would win, but it did. So we will be reading that one soon. Okay, I have been hunting for a Discworld set that I actually like the covers of. It's taken years and years and years. I've been looking because I'm like, oh, I could start collecting, but it's like 40 books. Do I really want to pick up 40 books when I don't really even like the covers? Because that is a really big space commitment on my shelves. And so I picked up 2 copies from Blackwell's. Blackwell's is like an internationally shipping book selling company or whatever. They had 2 versions, and from the description, I couldn't figure out the difference. But once I got them in my hot little hand, like, this is a Penguin version, and then they are republishing the HarperCollins version. You can tell by like the formatting on the back or whatever. And while I like the color schemes better with the HarperCollins version, I like how cute and compact and the shininess on the spine of the Penguin version. Not to mention, these are like $5 cheaper a pop. So I bought 2 just to figure out what the difference was because they said they were the same size. And I am not only starting the series, but collecting this particular version. And I am stoked. Basically, I'm starting it to justify the fact that I'm buying the entire set over the course of the next couple of months. Like, project, but I'll need to sell this one because I'm not going this route. I bought Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. This is the UK edition. I have an inkling that I'm going to like the series. enough that I'm willing to pick up the second book in hardcover just on a wish and a prayer. Now, I only have a paperback of the first one because the hardcovers on those, like, they're astronomical. They're like $200. So if I end up liking it, I'm gonna have to save pennies and maybe pick up a copy of that first book in hardback. But for the time being, this is a good placeholder. I'm very excited to start this series at some point. Although, you know, even though I started Discworld, I am trying really hard not to start so many series because I just, man, I feel like I don't have the time to continue anything. It's because I've got like 80 going at once. And I'm not exaggerating. The number is right around 80. The Silver Blood Promise by James Logan. This is the incredibly gorgeous Broken Binding edition. And I couldn't, like, okay, I didn't love this book. I found it very disappointing, but I had already pre-ordered a copy of this because I thought it was so pretty. So this is one of those books where book reading and book collecting is kind of two different hobbies. I picked this one up solely because I like the cover and think it's cool. And I'm hoping that the second book I will like more. This first one was a bit of a disappointment. Like the main character was kind of bumbling. There were a lot of mistakes made that I thought would have been deadly, but just kind of went with it. And I thought the mystery was incredibly too blatantly obvious. And I didn't like the writing style. I don't know. So I'm hoping on a wish and a prayer that the second one will be better. I am planning on giving it a try. I kind of don't like that I'm a wet blanket for this new debut author and stuff. Like, it doesn't feel good to knock all over someone's book, but it didn't work for me. But what did work for me, The Lies of Locke Lamora, one of my all-time favorite series. This is the sprayed-edged Broken Binding edition. And I'm glad they went with this cover series. I think I like it slightly better than everything else that was available. But I love that I have this edition. And then one of my favorite books of all time, Red Seas Under Red Skies. I don't love this cover as much, but it matches, so whatever. But sprayed edges on that one, which I just think, like, so cool. So I got into the Broken Binding subscription list at precisely the right moment to get on board the Scotland train because I love the series. Now, I had collected them in hardcover already, and I'll probably keep those, but, like, these are rad. Okay, on Pango Books, I picked up 5 Broken Blades by Mia Corlin. There are so many special editions for this book going out. Like, promotion out the butt. Is it a good book? I don't even know. Like, I didn't even wait for feedback, but there's a purple version, which I think is Broken Binding, and then there's a blue Goldsboro edition, which I think is gorgeous. They have sprayed edges, mine do not. This is, like, I think the Book of the Month edition. And then they have the regular, like, a special edition for the US that's the red cover, but with the sprayed edges. I don't know, this book better be good, but I picked it up on a total whim, and not special whatsoever because I wanted to have a reading copy for it. If I end up liking it, then I'm probably going to try to find the blue one. But of course, by then, it'll be, like, astronomically expensive. Also on Pango, someone was selling the entire Beyonders series in a box set. This is a Brandon Mull series. I love him most for his Fablehaven, and actually read this first book several years ago and I didn't love it. Like, it's one of those, it almost feels like a choose your own adventure book where you, like, pick an adventure. Like, it's not really one of those, but, like, they go on an adventure, they meet something, they talk to it, they either negotiate with it or fight it, and then they move on to the next one, and it's like rinse and repeat. It was very repetitive the entire way through. Who knows if it continues like that on through all 3 books, but for an author that I thought was pretty nostalgic and I love so much, I thought, you know, it would be cool to have them in hardcover. And the person that was selling them, it was like a reasonably priced, like $30 for this brand new pristine set. So yeah, I think I'm okay adding it to my collection. And also, my oldest child is just getting into the age where, like, maybe a year or 2, he'll find these really interesting. And that rinse and repeat story format is boring to me now because I'm an adult, kind of. But he might like it. So now I'm starting to buy books with my kids in mind, which is kind of cool. I picked up a hardcover copy of Madame Mayo by Brian Jacks. I love the Redwall series. Just seeing these covers is what motivated me to get better at reading when I was a kid. And I've been very slowly trying to snag reasonably priced hardcovers for it when I see them. Most of my books are the mass market paperbacks. Ever so slowly. I'll be filling in the holes in that one. Okay, I'm really tired of talking about these CJ Cherry Foreigner books, but I picked up a few more like inexpensively priced ones on Pango, and I'd better like it because at this point I've invested a lot of space, time, and energy, not as much money because they're like $5 a piece, but into collecting this series. And I didn't even really like the first book. Tor was kind enough to send me the latest in the Vlad Tolstoy series by Stephen Brust. This is Lyorn. The covers on these are always so freaking weird, and I gotta be honest, they really don't have anything to do with what's in the books. Like the original ones with the picture of the little dragon, Laosh, those ones were relevant. These ones, just odd. But I do like the series, and actually a couple friends and I have plans to continue it on Fantasy Buddy Reads coming up here soon, so maybe I'll get around to that one eventually. I have no idea where it lands in the overall timeline. On a whim, on Pango, I picked up the Lotus War series by Jay Kristoff, and it wasn't until after I bought the series that name recognition, Jay Kristoff, Empire of the Vampire, like all of those other series that I've heard of. But I love the covers on this one, and I had thought when I was used bookstore shopping that if I ever had the chance to snag this series, I probably would, just because I think it looks like it could be pretty good. I love Asian-inspired fantasy anyway. This is why Pango's addicting. I also picked up the Atlas 6 series by Olivia Blake, and I already had a copy of the first one, but it was being sold as a set. And these are very well-kept hardcovers, and I was lucky enough that the person who sent it sent them nicely packaged so they didn't get damaged. But I've heard mixed things on this. It's like school setting, magic school setting to boot, but not very good. Like something about it people don't like. But I want to find out for myself because if I'd listened to all the criticism that I heard for the Skoloman series by Naomi Novik, A Deadly Education being the first book, I don't know that I would have read it, and it's ending up being one of my favorites. So especially because I love school settings, I'm willing to try anything. And like I said, reasonably priced. Several months ago, The Broken Binding offered The Green Rider by Kristen Britton for sale. It's a signed copy, which I thought was really neat. These are the UK edition with the sprayed edges. And I'm not really much of a horse person, but trying to collect these with the US covers, which I like a little bit better, was just atrocious. So I'm hoping The Broken Binding will eventually do more in this series because I would like to collect them. I started the series back in the day, like over 10 years ago, and didn't love it. Like there were so many things about the first 100 pages or so that weren't working for me, and I was kind of over it. But come to find out that perhaps maybe I should keep reading a little bit further, and I thought it would be cool to start it again with a neat edition. And I guess if I'd end up not liking it for a second time, I can always sell it. One I am most definitely not selling is my Broken Binding Special Edition of Salute the Dark by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Very slowly but surely producing and collecting this entire thing. And nothing has quite compared to book one, but the series as a whole is one of the most interesting, fun things I've read. Like, people are divided up in this world by different bug factions. They have attributes of different bugs, and bugs are very warlike little beings, especially the ones in big colonies and whatnot. And so it's just so interesting, the dynamics and the different, like the creativity of the world building is a ton of fun, and I'm very pleased to have those in hardcover. And then I also bought Crucible of Chaos from Broken Binding when it came out, and now I picked up Play of Shadows by Sebastian de Castell. I really loved the Greatcoat series, and if I'm not mistaken, this is part of, like, in that world at least. It's been so long since I've read Greatcoats that I'm almost hesitant to dive in. Like, am I going to remember anything? Should I wait until more books are out? I don't know, but either way, I knew I wanted to collect them. Now, I really don't like the hardcovers available for Greatcoats. They're like this brown color. So I've got trade paperbacks. I'm hoping that since Sebastian de Castell is working with Broken Binding so often on his continuation books, that eventually they'll go back and do a hardcover printing of the Greatcoat series, because that would be rad. And then one of my new very favorite authors, Gareth Hanrahan, The Sword Unbound. This is book 2 in the Lands of the Firstborn. The first book is The Sword Defiant. I picked up that first book randomly on Pango before I had read anything by him, and I have since read everything out in the Black Iron Legacy series, all 3 books, and loved them. It starts with Gutter Prayer, and I am a huge fan of this author's writing. I think he's so good. So I am tickled now that I preemptively bought the new editions because he's an author I really like. So hopefully I'll be diving into that one sooner than later. Broken Binding is stealing from my kids' college fund at this point. So I have The Parable of the Sower and The Parable of the Talents, the Octavia Butler duology, that I just thought these were the coolest editions. I'd been trying to get into kind of the more staple sci-fi in the genre, and eventually I knew I was going to explore these anyway. And what if I read them and loved them, and the only way to get a hold of them was on the secondhand market where they're going for like $300 to $400 per set? Or I could just pay a pretty penny now and get them at kind of retail cost. And that's what I ended up doing. So I think these are really cool editions, and I will hopefully be really excited that I have them when I finally get around to reading them. Also on Pango, I picked up the YA set Fallen by Lauren Kate. I'm gonna be real, I haven't heard the greatest thing about this series. Like, kind of angsty, paranormal YA love story. But something about me just loves having these hardcover box sets. And so I bought it more because it was a cool hardcover box set and it wasn't very expensive. And it was probably at like 5 in the morning when I couldn't sleep. And that's exactly what happened. I need to use my Freedom app to block book buying past midnight. Because as soon as I ordered that, I'm like, that was so dumb. Am I ever going to read that? And if I do read that, chances are I'm not going to like it, but I'm going to buy it anyway. This is how you know you have a book buying addiction. If that came up during my challenge overhauled and I had to read it, I wouldn't want to. And I can't be the only one who buys books just because they're pretty. And then near the end of it, another foreigner novel that I picked up super cheap. Picked up a copy of Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, part of the Fourth Wing series. Actually just finished this one a couple weeks ago, and I liked it better than the first book. It had a lot more balance. And that one was only like $15 on Amazon. There are special editions that are going for well over $100 right now, but I didn't like it quite that much. I may have already hauled that one in another video. If I did, I'm sorry. Mother Ocean, Daughter Sea by Diana Marcellus. This is the first book in a series about like the last witch in this fantasy world. And I did research on this one for a Read Burn Hoard shelf. I only had book 2. And after I did that and decided it's a series I would like to explore, this popped up on Pango for like $5. And like, I don't know if my phone's listening in on my conversations and then offering me suggestions, but it was from a seller who I was already following who just happened to have it for sale. So I've like take a little bit of serendipity with that and decided that, yep, I'm gonna give it a try. And last but not least, Sailing to Serentium by Guy Gavriel Kay. This is the first book in a duology. I have never read anything by Guy Gavriel Kay. My mom really likes him. I've heard a lot of good things about him on BookTube, and I'm thinking because of how much I love Tchaikovsky when I get done reading all of his works, and then KJ Parker because I'm really loving all of his works, this could be my next author to get into, and I decided I'm probably starting with this duology. So it's a kind of a tall trade paperback. I was hoping for kind of one of the more like squat trade paperbacks for this one because they look better spine out on the shelf. But either way should be fun, and maybe this will be my next thing that I'm really into. It's got such potential. So there's the final tally. That is a lot of books. That is a lot of new books that I'm going to have to make room for. I've only read a couple of them, so a lot of these are going to need to find room in my non-read section. Thanks so much for coming along this book haul with me. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.